Welcome to No Room for Phonies. It's the end of summer edition.
Episode 71.
71. Revisiting school success. We thought it would just be a good idea to kind of, I'm going this way, to just revisit, because we did that whole series on education last
summer.
year. And so...
Still pertinent information.
Yeah, very...
Evergreen information, as they say.
Yeah. So you can find all of the school ones if you go to the No Room for Phonies.
Episode 43.
Starting at episode 43. And but we'll put them in the show notes so you can click on them. But you can just go to the website or blog and find them as well. And just if you just enter episode 43, the first one will come up, and then they're all in a row after that.
Yep.
But anyway, my green light moment actually has to do with my book recommendation, because the book recommendation is Richard Rohr's Falling Upward. And even if you're not in the second half of life, if you're in the first half of life,
it would be valuable to read it.
It's very valuable to read it even. So the green light moment for me, and I've talked about this before, is the idea that the second half of life is for bright sadness and sober happiness. Luminous darkness is the simultaneous coexistence of deep suffering and intense joy. And we know that that's kind of part of what the second half of life does. Yep. But anyway, the book Falling Upward by Richard Rohr. And Richard Rohr, I have to warn people who don't like spiritual, religious kinds of things. It's very spiritual. He's Catholic, but it's not overwhelmingly.
So it starts non-denominational and pretty non-religious, and then you said it kind of took a little turn.
There's parts of it, but
that were a little bit more.
The things he says are so.
Yeah. Well, in his other books, he is so much more cross religion or agnosticism,
and he is in this too. It's just. But anyway, but one of the things of the quotes from the book is, as you get to the falling upward part of life. And so what he's saying by that is, just because you're in the second half of life doesn't mean it's all downhill.
No.
So you positively ignore and withdraw your energy from evil or stupid things rather than fight them directly, because that which we oppose determines the energy and takes away our inner freedom. Daily life requires discernment rather than knee-jerk reactions. We work towards influencing events, working for change, quietly persuading, changing our attitude, praying and forgiving instead of judging. Life is more spacious. Our container is enlarged and ready to understand more experiences and relationships. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of the more sort of the encompassing idea of his book.
Yeah.
So anyway, you had a podcast recommendation.
Yeah. So I listened to an author being interviewed. The book is called Undisruptible, and the author is Aidan McCullen, and it's about having a mindset of permanent reinvention for individuals, organizations, and life. So it's basically about the fact that life always changes and there are always disruptions, but this is about how to be undisruptible as you go through life's changes and things like that.
So that's
I bought the book.
Similar.
I haven't ordered it yet. I mean, I haven't read it yet.
Picked it up, right? Is that the one you want to pick up today? Yeah. So, and I also want to remind people that Kate Bowler is coming back October 9th with another season, and she is actually one of my favorite podcasters. So anyway, so revisiting school success, I'm just going to briefly go over all the topics that were kind of included in it. So the first one is what to do when your child doesn't want to go to school. And my thing is to always find out why, because usually it's a reason, and you have to kind of delve in and figure it out. Kids just don't most of the time they like school. And I think,
depending on the age, you have to push and dig a little.
well, and I mean, no kid really wants to go to school after summer vacation. But school is like your job. You had your vacation and now you dress up.
But you're
show
talking
up.
more about like,
But I'm talking about,
repeated mornings of anxiety and.
Right. And I mean, the podcast talks about routine and how you really do have to talk to your child about how they don't have to love their teacher every single year.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not recommend moving children from school to school because they lose stuff by moving all the time.
Academically and socially.
Yes. And happiness is a feeling, and finding joy and fulfillment is very important. But that's not really dependent on anyone but yourself. But the podcast actually goes into some strategies if you're really struggling with your kids. So I would highly recommend that. And then there's another one on technology at school. So as a parent, you want to know that the school is monitoring, protecting, limiting, without dwelling on the sinister side of technology.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to that podcast, but that's basically...
Very good.
And then the other thing I think people need to think about is, what do you want for your child when you send them to school? And I'm not just talking about kindergarten here. I'm talking about all the way through high school.
Mm-hmm. What do you want for your child?
You let go a little bit when they go off to university, but we didn't completely let go.
No.
We wanted them to be in a program that was actually going to lead to something and a job and fulfillment for them. But when you're looking at a school, you should understand that school's values, purpose, vision, and mission. So if you expect the school to have that, then you need to have that for yourself and your kids.
Yeah.
So it's kind of what, has your family identified the top 3 to 5 values that you live by? Has your family talked about the purpose that you fulfill as a unit? What's your vision? Like, does your family have a mission statement?
So if you use the public school, why do you value it unless it's because you have no choice? If you homeschool, what are your values, purpose, and mission in that? If you go to a private school, same thing, like no matter what
kind of a school you're attending. Absolutely. And sometimes
you need to think of what your vision is, because then you can look for it in whatever school you're in. You can look for those indicators.
Well, and the other thing is you
contribute.
can also help to build it. Yeah, that's what I was just... And so, I mean, I think it's also important that you come across that way to the people in charge of the school and to your child's teacher. This is really important. This is what our family values. And so... we're going to work along with you.
Steve Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective Families helps you walk through designing a mission statement.
Yes. Yeah, and there's so many resources now on that.
That's what we used, I remember.
Strategies that build community in schools is another one. Student self-belief, student acting as their own learning agents working to achieve meaningful goals. So those are the kinds of things that help build community, autonomy, feeling that they're competent to achieve their own objectives, and recognizing that teaching and teachers are just central to engagement, that teachers need to be approachable, well prepared, and sensitive to the kids' needs. And if you're finding that that's not happening, it's okay to question that. Active learning, collaborative learning, peer relations, social skills, creating educational experiences for students that are challenging and enriching and extending, reflecting, questioning, conjecturing. So all the kinds of things that go into building a great community. And my focus is always on education, like the actual learning, because the learning in the classroom is really important, but the classroom is just not the 4 walls.
Right.
So I'm a big proponent that and I'm only going to say this word once in this podcast, but when unions get all bent out of shape over the amount of what they call extracurricular their teachers do, I would like to challenge people to think of what's beyond the four walls of the classroom as co-curricular and part of what kids need to be part of a fulsome community.
And a full education.
And the fact that they do get time off in the summer to recover from what they might have to do after school.
Yeah.
And all the kinds of things like cultural diversity and support services and their adaptation to change and, kids becoming active citizens and all that
so
stuff.
We explored that a lot in that episode.
Yeah, in that episode. Then the next episode was, what should teacher, student, and family connections look like, and the communication. And in this world of major opportunities to communicate, blogs and emails and phone calls, agendas and communication books, websites and phone outs and notes and apps and texts and meetings and interviews. And my basic
There's
thing...
no excuse for no communication from teachers.
That's just ridiculous. I mean, I know even in you and your role now as in your role in the college, you send out a blog every week to your staff that comes out on Sunday night, Monday morning, whatever.
Yep.
That and it's not strenuous to do that.
No.
What's it called?
The technology is called Sway.
Yeah. But I'm just saying.
It's just my Monday morning memo.
This is not hard to do anymore.
No.
So
I literally input the things as they come up during the week, and then on Sunday night I might spend 20 minutes arranging it, and it's gone, and that's it.
But I do want to remind people that good news comes in writing and bad news comes in person. So teachers should not be writing these long, unless you have a formal communication book where you're working on something and it's like a checklist or whatever. But if there are bad things happening, that's an in-person discussion, and you should know exactly how you will be kept in touch with. And this information should come home by the end of the first week of school.
Absolutely.
And communication is a two-way street. And there's a lot in there about communication and what your responsibility is as a parent as well. And then there's another one on things you should see. Was things you should see in every classroom. And I didn't mean physical things. It talks about things like student voice and choice and time for reflection, opportunities for innovation and critical thinking and problem solving and self-assessment and portfolios, genius.
So this is all about behaviors and visible learning activities.
Well, and good ideas on display by students, but it goes into a lot of detail about what you should see.
Not what's on the four walls, but what happens inside the
classroom. What you should see occurring in every classroom. And then the next episode, we just did a little bit on success and confidence. And we talk about directed, focused, nurtured, engaged, connected, valued, ensuring that extra help and coaching are available, setting high expectations, both in the classroom and in the school, and teachers' continued professional growth. So, I always used to have a little problem when teachers would come in and say, oh, these kids are so disorganized and so this and so that. Then I'd walk into the classroom and I'd say, well, I kind of know why. After being in this classroom, because it's disorganized and messy and dirty and whatever. So whatever you're expecting kids to do,
you have to model
you need to be modeling it yourself.
And it does change from grade to grade. The kids will be really organized with one teacher and they move to the next. And that teacher comments to the first, well, how come they were so organized for you and now they're all chaotic? And it's because that management style is chaotic.
And you can't just expect kids to do that.
No. It needs
and
to be
my
modeled.
favorite line, of course, is two things: partnership with home and success breeds success. So if kids are struggling with things and they're never kind of experiencing success, they're never going to become successful because they're just going to get into this hole. So success breeds success. So our next one is the one maybe you might want to go to first. It's episode 45, and it's questions you should ask your child's teacher before school starts.
Yep.
So you might want to delve into that one. I'm not even going to take the time to go into it, but and at the end of that episode, there also are some inspiring thoughts for teachers, because teachers do need to be inspired. They need to be held accountable, but they also do need to be inspired.
And for most teachers, September is basically like New Year's, and you kind of get excited and build up your energy and your anxiety levels maybe too. But there's also the whole like making New Year's resolutions, which we know often fall by the wayside. So it's more about finding grounded ways to approach the new school year. So lots of good.
And I also think you have to
teachers.
remember that little things count when you're a parent supporting a child's teacher. Like, I just remember parents that I had at a certain school, and they own a grocery store here in town, and all of a sudden she arrived with like boxes and boxes of Kleenex that I could distribute, and I let her kids walk it around and give it to everybody. But it was just such a thoughtful little gesture that they had this, and it was obviously extra, and they could afford to donate it. And those like kids go through Kleenex like they go through paper. Like, so anything that you can contribute that's small, that seems small.
Yep.
Like,
and it doesn't always have to be baked goods or coffee.
No, it can be like stickers. You go in the dollar store and you buy the teacher a whole bunch of Halloween stickers or something, or, you buy a few packages of pencils, sharpen them up at home and bring them in. So little things matter. And then our final one, there's a couple on assessment. There's one on assessment and one on reading and understanding your child's report card, and asking good questions and checking in frequently and paying attention to what comes home and expecting regular feedback that supports success and learning. I won't get into it too much, but I will say that I had a conversation with a parent recently where the report card came home and it was significantly lower than, and I've had this conversation a lot with parents, which is sad. That should never happen. You should never get a report card and go, wow, how did this happen? If the marks are going down or things aren't coming together, you should know that long before the report card. And you might say, okay, I realize when I open this that it's going to be a lot lower because I've had 4 or 5 discussions. We're working on it. Whatever's happening for your child right there, it's just whatever it might be. There might be stuff going on at home. Like, there's all kinds of things that can happen, but you should not be
caught off guard.
Not on a report card. So there's a lot in that podcast as well. So I guess what we're saying is start at you could go to episode 45, because that's what you should ask your child's teacher before school starts. And I will again say, for people in Ontario who are, and somewhat across Canada, I think some places kids start earlier in Canada than here. I know
not much.
In the States, they're all back already, I think.
In most states, yeah.
You can go into your child's school starting tomorrow, because they're all back in there, and you can ask to meet the teacher, see the classroom, so that your child does not experience like first day anxiety or whatever. Some kids don't need it, and that's fine. You don't have to. But don't let them tell you that you can't know who your teacher is, or you can't do this, or you can't do that, or we don't do this. That's not appropriate.
No. And in Ontario, the Education Act gives parents a lot of rights and responsibilities, as far as, for example, just walking into a school building and finding out who the teacher is. The week before school starts, it is a must according to law. So avail yourself of that information. It's all up on the Ontario government website.
And the other one is, don't think that you have to spend hundreds of dollars on school supplies.
No. And don't listen to the teachers whining that they have to spend $500 for supplies because the schools don't buy the supplies. That is a fallacy. If they spend that much, that's because they're choosing to.
Absolutely.
There is funding for all sorts of things.
I supported my teachers all the time in buying what they needed and what was appropriate.
Yeah.
So just don't get caught up in, because I'm in Ontario right now. There's going to be a lot of negativity associated with education right now because their contract negotiations are happening. And I would try the best I can, if I was a parent right now, to just focus on my child and what they need in education instead of choosing sides.
Yeah.
And just kind of, say, yeah, okay, we understand there's job action or negotiation or whatever, but this is actually what I need
for my
child. So we encourage you actually to, listen to some of the episodes and kind of get your head around what is the best thing for your family and your child. And certainly if you had any questions, you can go on the blog and ask them, or you can always
send an email.
Which you can do through the blog. Everything can happen through the blog.
NoRoomForPhonies.com, and 4 is spelled with the number 4.
With the number 4. And so on September 15th, we'll be back, and we're going to start talking about the 5 voices.
Oh, good. I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
So thanks for joining us. Episode 71, Revisiting School Success. All the best to everyone, and especially those in Ontario who are going to be heading back to school in about a week.
Yep. And all the best for everybody else for the whole school year.